that probably terrified you. A, you either skipped right through it. B, you immediately started checking your earbuds and seeing if it was actually working or if the volume was all the way up. Or C, you sat there and you were extremely, extremely uncomfortable. Because silence, the absence of anything happening, just pure silence, is something that just terrifies us nowadays. Think about the story of Jeremiah. Jeremiah is just your typical everyday guy, and he has this dream about something that he's missing. So the moment his alarm wakes up, bang, 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 he immediately pulls out a book, and he's reading as he's brushing his teeth. He's making the most of his time. And then he gets in the car, turns on the music, and is listening to music. When he gets to the gym, he decides maybe he should continue searching for that thing he's missing. So he stops listening to music and turns on a podcast. He's listening to these great people speaking. He's listening to this podcast. There's people crashing weights around him. And then he makes it to work. And they're talking in a meeting, trying to brainstorm something. And all of a sudden, there's this awkward silence. And immediately Jeremiah jumps in and tries to say something just so that they continue the meeting and it continues going. And then he's at his work and there's just this repetitive of people tapping on the keyboard, and there's just stuff happening and phones ringing all around him. And then he's still thinking about what is this thing. So he's talking with a coworker at lunch. They have a great lunch talking about something, trying to figure out what that missing thing is. And then on the rest of his lunch break, he goes on a walk. And on his walk, he forgets his earbud, so he just walks really fast. And you just hear his footsteps just zooming along as he's trying to just get as much walking in as he can on his lunch break. And then on the way home, he's talking to another friend on the phone. He gets to the house, turns on the TV in the background as he's cooking dinner. And then at night, he's on his phone scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And he still, at the end of the day, can't figure out what he's missing. You see, he's not missing anything for information or missing anything that you can add to your life. At some point, Jeremiah has to realize that you can't add too many things. At some point, it's about what you take away. It's about what you're focusing on. And that one thing that was completely missing throughout his entire day is silence. There's all this noise. There's music. There's podcasts, there's people talking, there's even just walking really fast so that you don't hear and sit in silence. And at every point of the day, there's something filling that silence. Now, every one of the different stages of this, some people I think are in a really tough spot where they have headphones on all the time and can't imagine life without music. They're like, music is a conversation, it's my soundtrack of life, I have to have music. And then there's other people that are pretty tame, but they're filling it with other stuff. It may not be music, it may not be podcast, but they're just scared of sitting in complete and total silence. It just feels weird. It's just uncomfortable. And a lot of it is because of our fast, really busy paced world. But if the solution isn't adding something, if the solution is taking something away, well, why is silence so great? Well, I think you can talk to pretty much any hunter. Now, some hunters, they're out in the woods and they're with some buddies and they're talking. That's fine, great. But some hunters that are out there by themselves, sitting in complete silence, they'll tell you how it changes them. They'll tell you about just how peaceful it is. They'll tell you about why they love it, because it's the only time they get some peace and quiet. There's something about sitting really, really still and just listening to complete silence that does something to your processing, that makes you think about life, and that just helps solve so many different things, just because you're taking a moment to sit and not feel anything, but take a moment and just sit in silence. There's a reason, there's this quote, I can't remember exactly, but someone was saying that all the great religions of the world were formed in the desert. Or something about just nothing happening where people can think and process life. So if silence is so great, if hunters talk about it, if religions were formed around it, then why don't we have silence? It's kind of the point of this video, is trying to figure it out. And of course, we may not just like it, but there's several things that I was thinking through. And you may think of some others, so put them in the comments, I'm curious. I think number one, it's just easier to fill in the gaps than to think. It's just flat out easier to listen to a podcast than to be bored while you're at the gym, or listen to music while you're at the gym instead of just sitting there or just going about your day without something. It's a lot easier to scroll while you're eating if you're eating by yourself than to just sit in silence. And it's a lot easier to have just something going, something happening, than to just sit and be bored. So number one, I think it's easier. Number two, I think we just feel bad not being productive. There's something about going on a walk that we feel like, well, I could be listening to a podcast, I could be learning something, I could be enjoying something out of this, or I could invite a friend to go on the walk with me, which is great. I'm not saying isolate yourself, but at some point, we're just filling up stuff because we feel like we're going to be more productive if we're doing something instead of just sitting in silence. We don't think silence can be productive. I think another thing is we just get bored. Similar to being it's easier to listen to something than to not. We just flat out are bored. Because if you sit in silence, it's kind of boring. Take the first 5 to 10 seconds of this video, and if you weren't uncomfortable, if you didn't skip ahead, if you weren't checking your headphones the whole time, there's a good chance you were just bored. You're like, when's something gonna happen? It's boring to sit in silence. And I think sometimes we just have too much to do, and so we're in a hurry to get things done, and so there's just no pockets of time to sit in silence. We have too much to do. Kind of going back to being too productive, we're just trying to cram too much in, and we're pretty good at it. There's some really highly productive people out there who are cramming in a bunch of stuff, but it means when you cram in a bunch of stuff, you're saying no to sitting in silence. Sometimes you do sit in silence, and there's those really annoying people or noises. Right outside this window, there's a car automotive shop, and during the weekday, they turn it off, thankfully at night, but there's some weird air pressurized thing that pops off, and it's annoying, and it goes really loud for about 5 seconds and then stops. And if I were sitting here trying to read or just trying to sit in silence, it's pretty annoying. Or if you're in the middle of a city, there's just a bunch of noises happening, or there's family around or roommates. I remember being at college and thinking, I cannot find anywhere that is complete and total silence unless I go drive like an hour away from campus or something. So sometimes it's just hard to find quiet time. And then also, we just don't have a lot of silent spaces, similar to those type things. We've got air conditioners everywhere. There's cars everywhere. There's just stuff happening. It's just hard to find a silent spot. And so when you sit down and you're trying to be quiet and you're trying to enjoy silence, it's kind of hard to. If the reason we can't find silence, then why are we adding so much to our day? I think, like I said, it's kind of a little bit about us trying to feel productive, but I think we fall prey to thinking that if a little music is good, then a lot of music must be better. If music gets me motivated and gets me hype, and if music helps me think and helps me study, then, well, I should just have music playing all the time. I know that's only talking to a couple of specific people, but if you think water is essential, and I think water is essential to life, water is incredible. When you're after a run and you chug some water, it tastes amazing. But if you were to just drink water nonstop all day long, number one, it's not healthy. Number two, you're going to be using the bathroom a lot. Number three, it's not really possible to just drink water all day long and continue drinking and continue drinking and continue drinking. Something that's good becomes something bad pretty quickly. I think it's interesting how filmmakers actually seem to get the point of silence pretty well. At least the really good ones do. Some of the most powerful moments happen in silence or in art. I think of the live stage production of Wicked and the moment when Elphaba and Glinda dance. It's just pure and total silence, and it's powerful. There's so many moments that are powerful because of the silence. I think of Martin Scorsese literally made a movie called Silence. Silence is something that a great filmmaker understands, and when it works, and when it's just completely silent, it does something that music can't do, sound effects can't do, dialogue can't do. Nothing can replace the power of silence. Now, of course, a whole movie can be silent, but that wouldn't be as powerful maybe. It's about variety. It's about filling things up in life. With filmmakers, they get shouted out for their silence. If they do a good job, I'm going to rave about it, or someone's going to rave about it. But in life, if you sit in silence, it's probably because no one notices. Or, well, let's just say no one would notice, and you're not going to get shouted out for that. I think of the best way to think about why you shouldn't have silence is because you have to have negative space in order to create positive space. So, for example, I've got 2 notes. This one says, this is a note. And it works because there's negative space. There is parts of the page that are not written on. There is a bunch of yellow, and the negative space helps create the positive space. But if you compare it to this note, there's still a little bit of yellow, but it's all filled up. Every last part of this one is filled up. There's a ton of messages written on here. And just because one message is good doesn't mean 20 messages on the same note is better. And just because a little bit of noise, a little bit of a podcast, a little bit of conversation, a little bit of music is actually good and really beneficial and helps create meaning out of life, filling every last second of your day up trying to get meaning is actually destroying the meaning in your life. And so I've got a challenge for you. And I know I would estimate 98% of people watching this video won't do this. And that is that for the next minute, I'm going to sit in silence. My watch time is about to go way down on this video. I don't care, because it's a fun challenge. And for the few people that are actually watching it all the way through and actually going to try and get something out of this, I want to challenge you to just sit in silence for the next minute.